Hey family, so I had a gentleman ask me if I could do a quick study on why black people have not rebelled against whites. And so I said, you know what, let's jump into it. So I researched the psychological, emotional, and spiritual qualities that black people have that have shaped our resilience, faith, and communal strength. And those are the things that have played a role in why, on large scale, black people have not committed an uprising against white Americans. So let's talk about the psychological factors. First of all, resilience and adaptability. Black Americans, we have developed extraordinary resilience in the face of oppression. See, we've learned to navigate and survive within this system. Where the barriers have been, we learned how to jump around them, jump over them, or push them all away, all together. And so, because we have that resilience and adaptability, our first inclination normally is not to just run, rebel, and start enslaving them as they enslaved our ancestors. Secondly, under the psychological factors, is generations of trauma have led to like this survival based mindset that prioritizes strategic progress over direct confrontation. So many times, honestly, we've just been in a constant state of fight or flight. If you think about it, if you are a black American, you have most likely either been in a fight or flight state of mind all your life. Think about it. You go to a store, you go out in public, you just never know what's going to happen, what's going to jump off. Second, under generational trauma and fear, the historical memory of extreme retaliation, like the lynchings, the massacres, the imprisonments, the assaults, has instilled caution in collective decision making. See, a lot of times some people think, well, but black people are afraid to uprise. No, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. But we also understand that what our ancestors went through, and we understand that type of evil that many white folk operated in then and now. That same spirit is alive and well in the earth, and it's no sense disturbing it if we don't have to. But as we see, it has raised its ugly head without us even having to do anything. So, also under generational trauma and fear, the U.S. government's historical suppression of black movements reinforces the idea that open rebellion leads to destruction rather than victory. Thirdly, underneath the psychological factors is the desire for stability and progress. Many black Americans, we are just focused on securing economic stability, education, and safety for our families. You understand? The majority of us are not sitting there thinking about, you know what? Damn them white people, they enslaved our ancestors. We need to go and enslave them. No, right now, listen. The best thing we could do to honor our ancestors is to live the best life that we can. Now, it's not that we cannot uprise if we need be. But right now, we've just so focused on just surviving and having a better life for our generations to come. And thank God for that. All right. Also, building generational wealth and dismantling oppression through legal and political means is often seen as a more viable and sustainable approach instead of just having an uprising. You understand? Now, let's talk about the emotional factors for why black people have not rebelled against whites. Hope and perseverance. The ability to find joy and purpose despite systemic oppression has allowed black Americans to push forward without resorting to widespread violence. You see, at the end of the day, it's that God conscious God quality that just black people have in general, probably because our ancestors who originated from Africa is in Egypt, Africa and the Garden of Eden was there in Africa. And so that's where the beginning of everything started. So our people, have always walked with God. Therefore, we have an innate ability, a God consciousness, even though we may not even realize that's what it is. Black people have that. It's just what it is. And so we just don't have that innate takeover Caucasoid spirit that wants to always just take over and pillage. It's just how we are. Thank you, Jesus, for that. All right, next, the number two, the underneath emotional factors is forgiveness and compassion. See, part of our forgiveness and compassion comes at a fault to us, and I think that is why many of the slave masters, they wouldn't read certain scriptures to the slaves that talked about freedom. They would focus on scriptures about be submissive to your master, God will reward you in the by and by. And they didn't want us to know, and so I think they use religion. I don't think I know. They use religion to remove the power that they knew we had if we really understood that God didn't want us bound like that, but free. And so, to our detriment, I believe we have used God, we've become too complacent as black people. Well, let's just pray about it. No, faith without works is dead. You still got to do something. You got to put your hands to the plow and make a difference. And so, we walk in a lot of forgiveness and compassion when, in my opinion, we really should not walk in so much forgiveness and compassion. Cultural values rooted in community and collective uplift prioritizes transformation over destruction. We just trying to have a better life. We just want to live our life. Just leave us alone so we don't have to uprise. That's all we're saying. The next area is emotional fatigue and burnout. We're just exhausted. Being black is exhausting in America. It really is. Constant racial battles can be mentally and emotionally exhausting, leading many to choose patterns of reform rather than war. Sometimes people just think it's easier to acquiesce and give in than to fight. The burden of fighting racism daily means that many priorities that many prioritize self-preservation over direct rebellion and retaliation. I can't even read my own writing. But yeah, so we just like, look, when sometimes you're so wore down, you're like, listen, I just got to preserve my own peace, me and my family's lineage. So right now, we don't have the fortitude to have to go and rebel. Now, what are the spiritual factors? Well, I just mentioned faith and religious teachings. Christianity, Islam, and traditional African spiritual systems have deeply influenced black resistance movements, often preaching patience, endurance, and righteous struggle rather than violent revolution. The civil rights movement was largely church-led, emphasizing moral superiority and nonviolent resistance. And see, a lot of white people knew that. A lot of white people knew it. But they also knew that blacks had the capability if we really wanted to. Because why do you think during the civil rights movement they would use water hose spraying all the people, the black people protesting, or the dogs, they would let the dogs loose? And that's something, y'all. The civil rights movement was largely church-led. Okay, next is the belief in divine justice. Oh, we black people been hoodwinked and run amok with this whole concept of gotta fix. They'll get it in the by and by. Let the gotta fix. Get them white folk in the by and by. Now, sometimes you better. People need to pay here on earth. Belief in divine justice. Many black Americans believe that justice, whether through religion, faith, karma, or ancestral intervention, will come without the need for violent rebellion. Also, the idea that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, reinforces a commitment to gradual progress. Also, cultural practices of healing and community strength. Our black communities, we emphasize healing through music, arts, dance, storytelling, cultural traditions, and that helps process our trauma in ways that don't lead to the violence and retaliation. The idea of Ubuntu, I am because we are, it reinforces a collective approach to progress rather than division and destruction. You know, I always say white folk got to be really afraid if black people stop praying, we stop singing, and we stop dancing. Y'all better be careful, because that's how we release ourselves. We release all of our pain and generational trauma and post-traumatic slave syndromes is through our creativity and our prayers. But if we ever stop praying, if we ever stop expressing ourselves through music and dance, you're going to wish it was an all-black Super Bowl halftime show. You sure won't be bitching. All right, so what's the conclusion? Black Americans, we have engaged in violent uprising against white Americans. We have not, because of a unique combination of psychological endurance, emotional intelligence, and deep spiritual faith. So rather than responding with violence, black communities have historically leaned into strategic resistance, cultural resilience, and faith-driven perseverance to fight for justice. But in all of that, not one thing is weak about that. If anything, it takes great strength to not retaliate and to treat the oppressor the way they treated the oppressed. All right. Hey, thank you all for joining me on my 10-minute workshops. If you like them, continue to like, share, and subscribe. And also just leave a comment and let me know what you think. And if there's a topic you want me to research for you and teach on, I will definitely do it. And hey, buy sister some coffee sometime, okay? Love you. Bye.